Jewish moms. Last week I got some amazing news from my friend Sarah Debbie Goodfriend. I think I've mentioned her before in my pep talk. She's my email chavruta for the past 7 years, so she is an accomplished writer. Possibly you've read her articles in H.com or Bina. And something that probably most of you don't know about her, even if you're familiar with her writing, is that she's a champion runner. She runs very far and very, very fast. And in fact, this past week, she came in 7th place for her age group for a half marathon, which means that just like which means that she's very, 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 very fast. Okay. She's so fast that she even qualified to run in the New York Marathon in a few months, which is something that only 5% of runners in America are able to do. Kol hakavod, Sarah Deb, way to go. But something that really struck me about this race is that when I read online about it, I saw that over 4,000 people run this race. Over 4,000 people. Can you imagine doing anything alongside 4,000 people? Like, what a high, what a thrill it must be to leave to start off and just running off running off with these 4,000 people. Wow, like what a high to be doing that, to be doing something so intense all together with that many people. And it reminded me of a very different experience which I had, which is also like a very, very thrilling experience that I had with a lot of people. Right after I gave birth, I mentioned in a previous pep talk that I went to a place called a Beit Hachlama. A Beit Hachlama is a recovery home for women who've just had babies. So my first day there was a Friday, and so we went down for candlelighting. And when I got there, there were over 100 women there who had lit candles, or who were in the process of lighting candles. And then all of us, we sat together for about half an hour, reading prayers, and just davening together, and it was just an incredible experience. One of like the most intense spiritual experiences of my life, just being there with all these women, all these Jewish moms, and saying the prayers after lighting candles. What was so striking about it is that this is something that we always do in our own homes. It's something that we always do like on our own, and nobody ever sees us. Like, we're on our own, and we're we light candles, we say the bracha. Our kids are like fighting, and like the house is like, I know in my house probably there's on most Shabbats the furniture is still on top of the sofas because we just did like a mopping right before Shabbat. And kids are hungry, whatever, and so I come back to that reality. But what's amazing is that like there, so we were like, it was like I got to see like all of us together, and it really what do you call it? Struck home for me, like hit home for me, like what an intensely powerful spiritual moment this is. That all these Jewish mothers all over the world, hundreds of thousands of us, are lighting these candles and saying the blessing and then the prayers, and it was amazing. Like at that moment, it was like instead of just being like me in my reality, lighting candles and then looking around at my furniture on top of the sofa, and and the kids fighting, and this one's hungry, and this one needs this, and this one needs that, to just be in like to all of a sudden to be able to see it like through God's eyes. Like, what does God actually see? Like, God sees that. God sees like that all these like hundreds of thousands of Jewish moms like lighting candles right then. Instead of seeing like from our point of view, seeing it from God's point of view. Like, that's what God sees. All of us having this really spiritual moment together, even though we're not together. And it reminded me of something that I mentioned last week, in last week's pep talk, which I learned from my teacher Dina Friedman of the Mastery course. So she was talking about when you're having a distressing, disempowering thought, when you have like when you're remembering a distressing experience. So she said, so you have a choice. Either you can look at it like this, like, I'm so distressed, it was so terrible, and what was, and what will be, and the feeling, all sorts of negative, disempowering emotions, or you can choose to see it from above, choose to see it from a higher point of view, possibly, let's say, through God's eyes, or just like a higher point of view, you know, then you can see like all that you accomplished and all that you gained and all the good things that possibly came from that experience, right? So I want to tell you about this past Shabbat. This past Shabbat, I had this amazing experience. I was in the Negev. It was a Shabbaton organized by my husband's, where my husband runs a program for girls right after high school. It's a women's yeshiva called Nishmat, and he actually teaches with Racheli Frankel. Racheli Frankel was the mother of Naftali Frankel, Hashem Yikom Damo, who was murdered along with two other young men this past summer. I'm sure that we all remember the story. And I actually, even though I'm sort of buddies with Racheli from these Shabbats that we spend together, because she teaches with my husband, I actually had not seen her since everything happened this summer. And so when I realized that she was going to be at the Shabbaton, like when I got there, I was like, oh, Racheli's here. I was like a little bit uncomfortable. Like, she's been through such an intense thing. I haven't seen her since then. Like, what do I say? What do you say to somebody who's been through something so terrible? What do you say? What am I going to do? But so I turned out at dinner. I was sitting at the table right next to her. And I sort of, I thought, okay, gotta go and say hello to Racheli. Racheli's your buddy, and you haven't seen her since then. Gotta go over. And I have to say, like, Racheli I spoke with her a bit, she looks amazing. She just looks great. She's so optimistic and so, like, she's always been, like I've always found her to be an impressive person, but I really felt like after I saw her this past Shabbat, like, I really had no idea. Like, after everything she's been through, after all of, like, it's such a terrible, terrible tragedy. One of the worst tragedies a person can possibly go through is to lose a child in such a terrible, brutal way. On the way home from school, it's such a terrible thing. And I just see her, like, looking so, optimistic and powerful and charismatic and just, like, so, so positive. Just, like, sort of giving off this incredible positive energy. She's always been like that. But now, in a way, it's like this experience has made her more so. So I was sort of wondering, like, what is her secret? Like, what's Racheli's secret? Like, what enables her to be like this? So I think I got my answer a little bit later on. She gave a talk to the entire midrasha, to all of Nishmat, and she was talking about the Parshat Shavua, talking about the parsha which was Parshat B'Shalach. And she was talking about something like a question in the parsha. She said, look, like the Jews, the Israelites, they were slaves in Egypt. Such a terrible, like, they were oppressed, and they were, the babies were murdered, and they had been through such a terrible experience, such a traumatic experience. And then, then they leave, and God makes this phenomenal miracle for them. God splits the Red Sea. And then soon after that, God gives them the Torah, and they see God, and with their own eyes, and it's just like this, they must be on this incredible high, but what happens? You think that the 40 years in the desert would just be like this incredible, like, wow, like, floating along, like, on the miracles, and feeling such a gratitude and thankfulness and everything. But what actually happened, is, right after they there's Kriyat Yam Suf, and right after the splitting of the Red Sea, and right after, they get the Torah, and all these things, we're complaining. We don't like the manna. Why are you giving us all this manna? We hate the manna. Why did you take us out of Egypt? We liked it there. We missed the flesh pot of Egypt and all the wonderful things, and the squashes and the garlic and the watermelons and all the wonderful things we had in Egypt. Why are you doing this to us, God? Why? And Racheli says, what is that? What is that? What's the matter with us? What's the matter with the Israelites? And she said, you know what it is? She said, you know what it is that we, all of us, every moment we have a choice. Where are we going to put the emphasis? Where are we going to put the emphasis in our lives? Are we going to notice, what we don't have? Because all of us don't have something. All of us have something to, like, to be mourning or to be feeling like we don't have. or you're going to know what we do, like put the emphasis on what we do have, on what we have, because all of us have so many blessings. Okay, this is me talking and not Racheli. But, like we have so much. We have so much. We have, so many blessings in our lives. Like just by virtue of the fact that we're Jewish mothers, we have children. We have homes, we have roofs over our heads, we have eyes, we have ears, we have, Bezrat Hashem, most of us have husbands, we have a family, we're Jews, we have the Torah, we have working livers and kidneys and hearts, Baruch Hashem, we have so much. But also, all of us have something, that we're, something that's lacking. We have something that we're mourning, we have something that we're missing. And I hope that most of us, B'ezrat Hashem, I think that very, very few of us, if any of us, are mourning something as heavily and as terribly as Racheli and her husband and the family is. But I think that we all have, as Racheli said, like we can all learn from her. We have a choice. We have a choice. Are we going to look like, as I talked about with the candle lighting, are we going to look at it like this? Like, look around and see the mess and see the furniture still on the sofas? We're going to look up from above. Like, what does God see? Like, all the blessings, all the things that we do have, all of the shefa, all of the spiritual abundance that we do have in this life, So I want to bless all of you Jewish moms, despite, that we should follow Racheli's lead. What an incredible person. What an incredible person that she's able, after everything that she's been through, she and her husband and the family, that not only is she still standing and still functioning and still doing so much for us, but she's still doing so much for Klal Yisrael through her teaching and through her, now she's also a public figure. She's such an inspiration for us. So may we follow her lead to focus on what we have, and not what we don't have, because all of us are missing something. Okay, I want to bless all of you Jewish moms with an amazing, amazing week. Kol Tov.